that's probably the new faces that we might have if they come in later. Anyway, um, we are having a special treat, as I said, and I'm going to turn it over right now. Oh, my special guest tonight is Celestia Morgan, who was here 6 months ago as our presenter. Raise your hand, Celestia. You're right there. I see you right there. Our photographer and our artist. And she's the contemporary of Ashley. They're both fine artists. She's a photographer, and they know each other, of course. We're so happy to have her. So please welcome Ashley. She's going to present our program tonight.
Thank you, Judy. I'm here. So as Judy said, my name is Ashley M. Jones, and I'm really thrilled to be here with all of you tonight. Tonight's event, which is called Lift Every Voice Across Generations, culminates my tenure as the O'Neill Library's Lift Every Voice Scholar. Lift Every Voice, a grant program for libraries funded by the Library of America, the Andrew W. Mellon Foundation, and Emerson Collective, is designed to enhance Americans' understanding and appreciation of the African American poetic tradition and its imaginative range and richness. In my role, I've been able to bring a total of 3 events to the O'Neill Library's audience and beyond with the help of Matt Lane, who's here tonight. And we're so happy to partner with kids in Birmingham, 1963. So welcome to all the kids, all the O'Neill Library guests, parents of our students, community members, and anybody else who does not fall into those categories, welcome. I'm so excited to share this program with you. Tonight, we have 3 students who participated in the Alabama School of Fine Arts Poetry Out Loud program, and they'll present original poetry, which centers around topics including civil rights, the Black experience, and how education has not always assisted in teaching us the real stories. I'm so proud of each of these students who currently do attend the School of Fine Arts where I teach. The students will read in the following order. First, we'll have Khalees Benson, then Myra Grizzard, and then Julius Shanks. And I'll follow them with a few poems of my own. Following the poetry presentation, I will moderate a conversation between all the generations represented here. So please remember to mute yourself during the poetry readings. And of course, you can unmute when it's time to discuss. And I hope that you enjoy. So let's welcome Khalees Benson.
Hello, how are y'all? My poem is entitled Why? And like a lot of people, this past year has been like a very different experience. And so historic event after historic event had been happening around me, indirectly and directly affecting me and my family members and friends and people beyond that. And so one day I just decided to write down how I was feeling. And so this is that. This piece is called Why. Why is it that if you see a Black person, you feel threatened? Why is it that you feel the need to tear down an entire culture because their skin has more melanin? Why is it that a kid in a hoodie screams crime? Why is it that for over 400 years and counting, Black people were taken advantage of, raped, beaten, killed, mugged, dehumanized, discriminated against, shunned, humiliated, heckled, sacrificed, and overworked? I mean, yeah, there are things we need to work on as a culture. I mean, the nation has problems of its own. Why does a Black child playing with a white child infuriate you? Why is it so hard for you to give Black people a chance to cope and deal with what they've been through? Why is it that you feel slavery and racism is in the past? Why is it so hard for you to allow a man to exercise in his own neighborhood? Why is it okay to let multiple generations grow up unloved, unprotected, ill-represented, unemancipated, and unreparated, but to expect that same generation to love and obey that country? This is the country that ripped away their identities, their families, and their freedom. This is not okay. Black children are taught early about police misconduct and the hatred bestowed upon them because of a nation that hides behind the law and a badge. This is not okay. Why is it okay to allow one to have government housing assistance as long as the man of the family isn't around? Why is it okay to draw zone lining where predominantly Blacks live to devalue the area? Why is it okay to teach Black kids a sugar-coated version of their history and to teach their peers the same? Why is it okay to judge? This is not okay. Why is it okay to keep Black people in a modern slave system, to imprison them based on an accusation? This is not okay. This is not okay. So I ask you, why? Thank you.
My name is Myra Grizzard, and today the piece I'll be reading is titled Alabama History is Whitewashed. This piece comes from a special place in my heart. Growing up as half Native American in Alabama, all I was taught about my culture was a very diluted version of it. So this poem reflects on the education I was provided about my own history and the history of other races by the state of Alabama. Alabama history is whitewashed. When I was in the 4th grade, the state of Alabama taught me that Black people wanted to be enslaved. It was written up on the board in Orange Expo. Slavery was a choice. Segregation was a choice. They taught me that the white men only adhered to the wishes of those less fortunate, as my teacher put it. It started long before 4th grade, though. The lies in the textbooks, the history cherry-picked by racist teachers. Do you know how dehumanizing it is to be a young Native child asked if they want to dress up as a kind pilgrim or angry savage for the Thanksgiving play? I didn't know it was dehumanizing at the time. I mean, my school system treated this like normal. I mean, what's so wrong about letting little white kids paint their faces red and do tribal paint? What's so wrong about letting the kids dressed as the white men chase down and try to wrangle the ones dressed as natives while shouting the word savages at the top of their lungs across childhood playgrounds? Between grades K through 7, we celebrated Black History Month once, and then it got posted all over social media. My school made it clear that this was only an event to make us seem like decent human beings, to seem as if we cared about students other than those from predominantly white families. Everything I was taught about the civil rights movement while in elementary school was wrong. My 4th grade teacher used the word villain to describe marchers. He said they were evil. He said, and I quote, "They had a good cause, but look at them." It was as if my teacher knew he couldn't argue with the facts about what history did, but didn't want any minorities to be celebrated at the same time, so he created a plate of lies. When it came to Alabama history, there were always the good guys and the bad guys. Let me rephrase that. There are the white guys and the bad guys. White good, anything else bad. Native Americans, evil. They started wars, they ended women's lives, they killed children. That was the end of that lesson. Asians, evil, they bring disease, they ask for money, they ruin the country. That was the end of that lesson. Black people, evil, they fight for rights they don't deserve, according to my teacher. They play the victim. That was the end of that lesson. Those are the racist ideas Alabama history put into my brain from a young age. They were textbooks lined with lies and bigotry. The civil rights movement was led by white people and only white people, according to Alabama history textbook, McGraw-Hill, 2009 edition. The Native Americans attacked settlers for no reason and then asked to be relocated, according to my 5th grade history teacher. Anyone enslaved was there by choice, according to 4 years of history class at 2 different elementary schools. Alabama history is dominated by white men, written by white men, and cherry-picked by white men. And nothing seems to be changing.
Hi, my name is Julius Shanks, and today I'll be reading for you a piece I wrote entitled Still Here. This piece is a new one of mine that I wrote because every day I wake up and I think, wow, I'm still here in the same situations. And so out of my frustration of getting tired, we all know the scripture, don't get weary in well-doing. Well, I've been weary in all of my well-doing. And so when I wrote this piece right here, it is just simply a way to release and remember that we're still in the fight. So I present to you, Still Here. I'm still here. My stomach hurts. My mind is bleeding, oozing out painful thoughts that my heart's been receiving. It's quicksand. I'm sinking into the negative energy of those around me. I turn around and bam, there goes the cops. They found me. Yet I'm still here. Even though I can't equate the times today like yesterday, maybe tomorrow, I'm walking in my joy for a moment, but here comes my sorrow. What more do you want from me? I'm screaming out at the top of my lungs for help. Can't you see? But no, you can't. Because we just want to chant Black Lives Matter like that's changing a pattern. On the other hand, I'm still here. There's still a method to my madness and a feeling behind my sadness. I'm sick of writing love letters to the dead. When I close my eyes at night, I see shots to the head. I'm an exception to the racism, a revolutionary in God's beautiful creation. I'm still here. And I came to the realization. If you are fighting for change, change you will not see. You will not live to see the fruits of your labor, for that change it's like a tree. It will soon blossom long after you are gone. For that change, in order to see, then you must be. I'm staying here. Every morning I make a decision, on a mission, off to face the opposition. As I look into the future, well, the future is here. The future is near. The future is near and here because God is here. The future is near and here because you are still here. Thank you.
Thank you, students. I just love hearing the students recite their pieces. I love being a teacher so much, and this is one of those moments where I just am glad that I get to even be in conversation with these young people. So I'm going to end our poetry section of the event by reading a few poems of my own. And I decided it might be nice to read one piece from each of my books. I only have 3 books, so it's only gonna be 3 pieces, don't worry. So the first one is from my first book, which is called Magic City Gospel. And this poem is actually set at the Children's March in 1963. I was not alive for this march, but I learned about it in school and have seen a lot of pictures and video from it. And I wanted to write a poem that sort of gave a different voice to the children who marched. And it's called Birmingham Fire and Rescue Haiku, 1963. What about us said we were on fire? What said extinguish quickly, fill up the hose and set the dogs loose? Could they smell our confusion, or was it our singing? Were our voices like sirens, a chorus of blood? We were wet Black seeds in that raw Birmingham flesh. We germinated. Did the photos show our fingers stretching like roots? Did they show our eyes, how they reached sunward to the hot, bright, silent star that could turn water to steam, seeds to fruit? Did they see themselves become our fertilizer? Second piece is from my second book, which is called Dark Thing. And this poem is one that I wrote during the 2016 election year, which was frustrating for reasons I don't have to enumerate here for y'all. Everybody lived through it, so we know why it was so frustrating. And I wanted to connect the atrocities that we saw in that presidency, which I think none of us want to name anymore, with the founding of our country, which if we look at those documents, those founding documents, we can see that there is actually racism and discrimination embedded within them. So this is called Election Year 2016, the motto. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. We hold truth, men are created equal. That's self-evident. We, truth men, are self-evidently created equal. We hold these truths that men have created. It's self-evidently not equal. We who are not truth cannot be equal. Our race too self-evident. We held on for a truce between the self and its need for equality. Victory is not self-evident. We hold these truths. What more can the self hold? What evidence is there that we're equal? We held the truth, not guns, to be self-evident, but bullets and words are not equal. We held our lives like truth, but death was even truer, its tragic certainty self-evident. And the last poem that I'm going to read for y'all today, and thank you for listening, comes from my forthcoming collection, which is called Reparations Now. And this poem sort of talks about this phenomenon that I've encountered in my travels. When I've traveled out of the South, people seem to have this opinion that racism and discrimination doesn't exist anywhere but here, which we know is not true. And so this poem kind of talks about that. And it begins with an epigraph from Dr. King. It's called All Y'all Really from Alabama. The straitjackets of race prejudice and discrimination do not wear only Southern labels. The subtle psychological technique of the North has approached in its ugliness and victimization of the Negro, the outright terror and open brutality of the South. Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Why We Can't Wait. This here, the cradle of this here nation. Everywhere you look, roots run right back south. Every vein filled with red dirt, blood, cotton. We the dirty word you spit out your mouth. Mason-Dixon is an imagined line. You can theorize it or wish it real, but it's the same old ghost, see-through, benign. All y'all from Alabama. We the wheel turning cotton to make the nation move. We the scapegoat in a land built from death. No longitude or latitude disproves the truth of founding fathers' sacred oath. We hold these truths like dark snuff in our jaw. Black oppression's not happenstance, it's law. Thank y'all for listening. And at this point, what I would like to do is to open up the conversation portion of the event. And I'd like to start by just asking some of the audience if you have reactions or questions for the students or even for me. So yeah, if you have them, you can unmute. I guess that's how it goes. And do people unmute on their own and just?
Yes, I think you'll have to unmute yourself.
So
hey, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I would like to, and thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your talent with us as well as your wonderful students. My question is to your students, and it is, to what degree were you inspired by the new poet laureate, Amanda Gorman? Is what she did it have an impact on you, and in what way? And just give me your thoughts about that, because I thought she was wonderful.
Y'all want me to go? I'll go first. Me personally, I'm 17 years old. I'll be 18 and on April 24th. Amanda is 22, I believe. 22. And like that age difference is not far away at all. And you see young people in action, but you don't see like young people in action like we've seen this year and this past year. Because me personally, I've been working a lot. And to see that, it's like, wow, like, it's not about the recognition, it's not about the accolades, but just to be able to use your voice on a platform that, like, not only the US is watching, the whole world is watching. And so I love just the fact that, like, when we look at someone our age doing something like this, it's not just poetry anymore. It's not just, speaking to people. It's like, it's a way of life. And you're using your voice to change the world. And so for me, it's allowed me to know that, like, no matter what I do, if it's my acting, it's my writing, it's my whatever I do, it's like my voice, it's what's changing the world. So that's why I love it so much.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I have a question here. For the students, do you get a chance to present your poetry out in the community in poetry slam type format?
Okay, so we are in this competition right now. That's the Poetry Out Loud competition. And it's like Alabama has an arts community. And I think growing up in Alabama, you don't think that there is a big outreach. You know, you think that you have to be in New York or Atlanta or Chicago or an industry city in order to. But I think that the more comfortable people are and the more we do events like this and the more we do competitions like this, I think that there are more opportunities in the Alabama arts community. So I think that not only just in acting or writing, I think that music, dance, just all the arts, photography, everyone's coming together in order to create more of a outlet for people that are in the arts. So to answer your question, yes, but it's starting to happen even more so.
And a follow-up to that is, do you ever do your poetry accompanied by music? A musician playing in the background or a soundtrack playing in the background to accentuate what you're saying in words?
Yes, I personally do often, since a lot of my poetry is about like the Native American experience. What I've taken to doing is getting some of my family who is still living on tribal land to send me recordings of them playing traditional instruments. That way people can get a piece of my culture throughout, like with the music rather than just my words. I feel like it adds an extra dynamic so that people can understand and embrace my culture with me.
Thank you.
And just to add to that, this is Cecil, guys. How y'all doing? I haven't been here. I missed the last one, but I tried to make sure I caught you this time. So about 12 or 13 years ago, man, in my life, I've done a lot of things, right? So I used to promote live shows. And one of the formats that we did, me and a couple of friends of mine, was spoken word. And we did just like what you were talking about. We used, you know, a backdrop of music, but we were involved with a local artist by the name of, his stage name is Glenwood. He's the son of a guy who went to college with me. But there's a very large poetry and spoken word community in Alabama, in the Birmingham area, outside of the, you know, the normal avenues of education and the public school system. And I know this guy would welcome these kids, man. And they can find him on Facebook. He goes, like I say, he goes by the name of Glenwood. His real name is Glenn Griggs Jr.
Okay. I have a couple of comments and questions. I want to thank all of the poets for reading. And I guess my first question is for Ashley. I'd really like to hear a little bit about your teaching process with the students. I think that would be very interesting for us to hear. And then just before, I wanted to comment with the Poetry Out Loud. I don't know if all of you are members of the Alabama Writers Forum, but it's a really great organization. And I think they sponsor that Poetry Out Loud competition. So I, urge you to look it up. Jeannie Thompson is the director, and to join it, because they really do sponsor a lot of good writing events. So anyway, Ashley, will you?
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, I would also piggyback on the Writers Forum. I'm actually on the board of that group, and the people who sponsor Poetry Out Loud is the Poetry Foundation. And I work there too. I have a lot of jobs. We don't have time to go through all the things that I do, but yeah, about my teaching style. Oh, I actually wanted to go back just for a second when Khalees was saying that now there's more opportunity for people to do art, and that even though we're not an industry city, that there is possibility there. That whole idea is literally the reason why I decided to come back to Alabama after grad school, so that students could say that exact thing. So that really is affirming to me, and thank you for saying it, Khalees. That's like my goal in life, is to just make Alabama a place where artists can feel like they can do their art. But anyway, that aside, my teaching style. I want to say, first of all, the only one of these students who I have taught on a regular basis is Myra, because she's in the creative writing department at our school. Khalees and Julius are in the theater arts department. So this is actually my first time working with them. And they came up with the poems on their own. I'm simply here as a vehicle to let them share. But for those students who I teach in the creative writing department, our techniques for that, we pretty much teach as if we were teaching a college course. The School of Fine Arts has a standard where students are able to receive instruction at a very high level. So by the time they go to college, they're often ahead of everybody else. That was my experience. I went to the School of Fine Arts for creative writing. And when I got to college, I was like, okay, I'm already, ahead of the game. So what we do is that we present published work to students. We talk about that work, we analyze it, and then we have students to write their own, pieces, their original pieces. We also let them do readings, and they enter contests. I'm sure Myra could say much more about what the educational experience is like, because she actually has gone through it, and hopefully we're doing a good job. But that's pretty much the process that we go through. And there was a question in the chat from Charlotte, and she asked, are you finding that more young people are expressing through poetry? Is it becoming popular across different venues?
I wanted to answer this question when I saw it, because I think that, well, for me personally, like when you think of poetry, especially being from Montgomery, Alabama, to moving to Birmingham, Alabama, and I'm a young male, when you think of Alabama, you're like, all they do is play football and Tuscaloosa, Roll Tide, and that's it. But being an arts kid, I found that like poetry is an extreme outlet. It's an outlet that we all need to get into. Shout out to Miss Jones, because I haven't had her as a teacher. I haven't had the pleasure of having her as a teacher, but she's had an indirect impact on me through the school of my 4 years being here. I've never told you this, Miss Jones, but like, yes, seeing your work outside of the school, having you as a homeroom teacher, just the little comments and emails we'll have where you encourage me, it's allowed me to know like, I don't have to have a time to write. And Dr. Busby, she's in here. She's our 12th grade English teacher. She puts different pieces in front of us. She exposes us into all literature, whether we want to read it or not. She's going to put it in front of us. And now, because we're blessed at ASPA to have this culture and teachers, we're able to go out and spread that to those around us in our community, because ASPA is a very tight-knit family as to where like Birmingham is so big. We can take that as students and bring it to everyone else. So poetry is becoming seen more. I don't want to say more people getting into it, because I can speak for everyone, but it's being seen more. And it's not just being seen as a lame thing to do anymore. It's being seen as like, okay, I can really get into this. And if you have something to say, if you have something on your heart, there's a place for you to do it.
Wow, thank you, Julius. Y'all are not going to make me cry on this Zoom. Not on tonight, no. I saw somebody's hand up, actually. Oh, Celia?
Thank you for all your presentations. I have a lot of questions. I don't think I'm going to ask all of those, but I just wanted to ask one that may have, or more, just to see how the time goes. In listening to all of these, I wondered if there's a compilation somewhere of poetry, and that would help someone advocate, for changes in our society. For example, I live in the Nashville area, and in our county, Williamson County, there is a Confederate flag on our seal. So this is our Williamson County seal. It's been gone through several levels, and I've kind of advocated each level. Right now where it is, a group of people studied it and voted to get rid of it. And then the commissioners voted to get rid of it. The first was unanimous. Then it's in the Tennessee Historic Commission's hands right now. I just wrote something for that. And in what I wrote to them, I used some things from Cast and from Amanda Gorman's poem. And so I wondered, people who are advocating for rights, if there's something there that people would want to own that could be used for advocacy purposes. But you may or may not know about that, but I just think, you guys were talking about the use of poetry now and so many things. Yeah, Amanda Gorman blew me away, absolutely, at the inauguration. And so I don't know, maybe you or someone else has thoughts, sort of, I don't know, how would they label it? Would they be like, I don't know how they might be labeled, but is there such an anthology, or could there perhaps be one?
Well, first, I guess I should mention the Lift Every Voice anthology itself. There actually is a book that is like partnered with this grant program that released last year, and it chronicles 250 years of African-American poetry. So that exists. And there's plenty of books just by, Black authors or authors of color, which could be used. I mean, I would even say not to toot my own horn. I'm certainly not that kind of person, but any of my books I think could be used for that purpose. But I would also just say, if you're looking for books that maybe talk about, I don't want to call it protest culture, that's not what I mean. I guess I mean like advocating for change. I would just say explore the African-American poetry section at your library, or advocate for there to become one at your library. Some authors of note might be June Jordan. She was a really incredible activist poet. And also Audre Lorde is one that you might want to read. Yeah, I can try to come up with a list perhaps and send it to Anne, because it's a little hard to think of all the books that you could read. But if someone will remind me, I'll compile a list and send it to y'all.
That would be great. And Ashley, could you just say a word about this program? We didn't really give much of an intro this evening, so just say a word about the program that you're doing.
Sure. Before I do that, Anne, could you let in Hannah French, who's trying to get into the program?
Oh, sorry. I'm not seeing anybody. Let me look.
I don't know if she's still there.
Oh, here's somebody. Yeah. Thank you.
And to answer your question, the program, do you mean the Poetry Out Loud program?
Lift Every Voice.
Lift Every Voice. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I mentioned briefly in the beginning, but I'll say again, and I'll also invite Matt to say something. But Lift Every Voice, the grant program was created by the Library of America and several other organizations. And basically the idea is that these libraries would receive funding to put on programs that promote African-American poetry, so that their communities would be educated about it, and it would just be more infused into their communities. So we've done 3 programs so far. And Matt, if you want to say anything about the program.
I should have just got Pedialyte before the Gatorade.
Sure. Hey, Michael Berger, would you mind muting your audio? And so we applied for the grant through the O'Neill Library, I believe back in February of last year, and received word, I think early May. It was supposed to be in April, but Ashley had agreed to be our Lift Every Voice scholar, and it's been such an amazing experience. So the first program that she put together, she had herself, 2 other poets, and 3 dancers doing their works simultaneously. So the dancers performed as the poets were reading, and it was really one of the most beautiful poetic experiences that I've witnessed in my writing career, performance career. And then the next thing that we did was the prescription is poetry, where Ashley got people to submit worries, woes, and even triumphs, and she paired those with an appropriate poem. So she's really such an amazing gift to Alabama and to our literary community. I don't believe she's mentioned, but she is actually the guest editor for the next several months at Poetry Magazine. She was recently published in Poetry Magazine. I mean, she is the real deal, y'all, and we're so lucky to have her representing Lift Every Voice and to get to hear her words here tonight. So thank you, Ashley. And thank you, the students. Y'all's work is top notch, and I look forward to seeing all of y'all's storied careers as the years go by.
Thank you, Matt. I want to go back to a question that was in the chat. I see other hands, but I don't want to let this question go. Mr. Dale asked for each student to talk about what's next following high school.
Well, I'll go first. Next year, my goal is to go to, well, right now, all my colleges, they're just, but my number 1 is Howard. University in Washington, D.C. That is my #1 school. I've already been accepted. I've already been double accepted into the acting conservatory as well. So I am on track to get there. So just doing everything I can to fill out scholarships and get funding to help my parents out so they can send me. So for me, that is my focus while doing things in Birmingham and in Montgomery, Alabama, still helping and working as much as I can. I'm still just very focused on getting out and getting the education I can.
Okay, so Myra, you can go first because you're a little bit closer to being done than I am. So
for me, I haven't fully decided on a college yet, but I'm trying to get a degree in forensic psychology because from a young age, I was kind of exposed to how people of color in Alabama can be locked up for crimes based solely on race. And ever since I witnessed that when I was younger, like touring a prison for a field trip, I decided that I wanted to work to help those incarcerated on false charges get free. So I'm working to get a degree in forensic psychology, but I'm also looking at minoring in poetry because performing spoken word is truly a big passion of mine. Because while I don't think my poetry will impact the whole world, I do hope that I impact a few people enough to maybe change their perspectives on some specific ideas. So I just plan on following my dreams and continuing as a poet.
okay, so I'm in 9th grade, so I have a few years before I'm done with high school. But for me, I've always wanted to be a nurse, and I've always wanted to be an attorney, and I've always wanted to be a performer. Okay, so those 3 things don't really mesh, right? So a couple of years ago, I discovered nurse attorneying, and that's when you have a dual degree and you are dual licensed to be a nurse and an attorney. So you're working at a law firm, but you're also a nurse, you know, working on malpractice cases and actually being a nurse. So I always tell people I have a practical dream and then I have like a dream, you know, and my dream is to be a performer, obviously. I've been dancing since I was 3, different styles, mostly ballet, and I've done some jazz. I play piano. And so just that aspect of things is something that I've loved doing for forever. And that's my #1 goal and my #1 dream. But I also love helping people, and I love doing as much as I can to impact people, to witness to people. And so being a nurse attorney is one way to help a lot of people. So right now my focus is on starting dual enrollment. So hopefully this summer, y'all, I will be a college student. How exciting is that? And I have auditions coming up for different conservatories and internships. So that's right now my focus is on just nailing down a plan and nailing down specific accolades.
And I think there were some other questions. Yeah, clap for that. Goodness, I'm so excited for everybody's future. Hopefully y'all remember me when you're all famous and, you know, saving the world. I saw some other hands earlier if people wanted to ask a question. Oh, Celia.
Here.
There she goes.
That's awesome, you guys. What are you're planning to do? I do want to hear about all the famous people too. And Ashley, I'm sure you know it looks like you're on a road too. I mean, it's awesome what you've written, and all of you. And one question among others that I have is, in listening to all of you, what all of you said, just kind of combined. You know, you're looking at what happened in the past that's still a problem in the future, and people to understand, you know, kind of get over it kind of concept, which has always bothered me. I don't know how you could do that. You know, some of this is in your DNA, and some of it is still happening. But also, I was struck by Myra when you were talking about in the schools, the things you were taught, and I'm pretty far from having been in school. I don't know, what does everybody else think about? What does everybody know or think, or what have your experiences been in schools? How issues that Myra talked about and others are are being addressed, and perhaps do you know if things being done is enough being done, or that kind of thing is just sort of if anybody has any thoughts on that.
Well, like I've said, ASLA is just a very different community. Alabama in general, as Ms. Jones brought to our attention, when you think of Alabama, it's like, think this is racism right here, but it's everywhere. And at ASLA, we've been taught like everything. And we've definitely pushed our teachers that if they didn't want to teach about it, or if they didn't have a spot in it, to talk about certain things, if they wanted to brush past certain things, like we have the authority at ASFA, and they give students so much voice that like you could speak up and you could say something. So in the past few years that I've been here, I've definitely learned more than a lot of my friends who are not at a school like this, my friends in Montgomery and my friends in Birmingham, Alabama. So when they look at me, they're like, how you know all of this? And I'm like, y'all aren't learning this in school. And so I'm definitely seeing the difference, because I'll have some conversations with my friends and I'm like, y'all didn't know nothing about this. Like, I'm the only one who's read this. And so it's there. It's definitely there. It's not sugarcoated. Myra hit it right on the head. We brushed past Black History Month. We brushed past, slavery in the lesson plans. And I don't know why. I don't know what it is. I don't know why textbooks are so miswritten and so misconstrued. Like everything, whenever you look around, it's like you clearly have to get the information for yourself, because what's right there in front of you isn't the true thing. So that's how I feel about it. That's what I've seen.
I'm just gonna I was saying, I don't know if y'all saw me mouthing, ASPA is great. This is my first year, and I came from a private school. And so private schools can kind of teach more on what they want to teach. And Black History Month was not mentioned. There was no program. There was no acknowledgement until my 7th grade year, which was my second year. So out of my 3 years of going to that school, only 1 year and one teacher did any type of recognition for Black History Month. And so that's kind of been my experience growing up. I'm a military brat, as people would say. So I've kind of traveled and lived in a couple different states and things like that. And so just being at ASFA, I've never had a school where the entire month we have seminars and programs and acknowledgement and celebration for my culture and so many other cultures and so many other experiences, I know that Myra was saying, different teachers hit on certain things and certain things that they kind of push past. And so I've had a lot of teachers that make it seem like slavery was not this country's fault, or that this country was not at fault for slavery, or that, slavery wasn't that bad. And I know that just being up north, and Miss Ashley was saying that racism is not a thing, or people are thinking that racism is not a thing outside of the South. And that's 100% not true. I lived in New England for 2.5 years, and that's 100% not true. I would have people all the time think I was a refugee from different countries and, ask me different things like that until I get to talking and they're like, oh, like, that word, or you have a little bit better of an education than I do, and you know more about this than I do. And it's like, that double standard and that overlooking and under teaching, it's not just in the South, it's all over. And it's.
Yeah.
I guess I'll also answer this question, even though I am a teacher. I did go to the School of Fine Arts as a young person. And Khalees, I'm so glad that you feel so included, because I have to say it has not always been that way, but we've been working really hard as alums and now as faculty to make sure, and students have also raised their voice. As Julia said, there are a lot of opportunities for students to raise concerns. So it definitely does look different than it used to when I was a student millions of years ago, so I'm very glad that it's this way now. But also another thing that I try to do in my own classroom, and Myra can attest to this, I feel like everybody knows if you're taking a class from Ms. Jones, you're going to be talking about race. You're going to talk about, oppression and social justice and whatever. Like that's what I do. Even though I'm a writing teacher, I'm not going to shy away from the things that matter. And so I'm trying to do my part as a teacher and just as a person in the world to always educate about the things that are true and that matter. So I feel like others may have questions. I had some questions prepared, but y'all have a lot of questions. So if there's any others out there. Yes, ma'am, Miss Charlotte.
Hi. Thank you so much. It's been so inspiring, and I want to emphasize educational, because I think there's an educational potential because it's continuous. And these are times that are uniquely pressuring and intense and injuring further to all of us in some ways. So I think the poetry is going to be valuable. And I just want to encourage the students to, like I put it in the chat, take it to the people. It wasn't in the history books. Take it to the people. You know, what I always heard is just a little couple of lines, but the young lady who talked about her experience with Native Americans and that sensitivity was an open door to understand more about that emotion. So I think across many cultures that can happen, and it's a great way to do it. Thank you, students.
Thank you. Cecil, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a statement to the kids and to you. I think this generation is probably living the closest political atmosphere that we lived in the 60s and the 70s. And their inspiration is definitely heartfelt by me. I understand it. I encourage it. And I'm glad to see that we're back at a point where arts and education is becoming important again, because as we were taught, there's no way that we can become the people that we need to be without becoming more literate, more educated, and more inspired. So thank you guys.
All right. Well, I think maybe I'll end with, oh, is that a hand, Mr. Todd? Or is it a clapping reaction? Clapping, okay. Thank you. I think I'll just end with a question since we're at 7:53. So let me see. I guess let's end with the students. And I wanna ask each of you, what does civil rights mean to you? And it can be a brief answer. You don't have to wax poetic about it, but what does it mean to you? And what has this experience in this Zoom call meant to you also?
I guess I'll go first again. My answer's on the top of my head. So civil rights to me, when I think of civil rights, I just simply think of awareness. A lot of times it goes beyond fighting. When you think of civil rights, you think of a fight, but for me, it's awareness because not many people know. And now that many people are hearing about it, they can understand what the fight is. So before you can even fight, you have to know about the fight. And so I view civil rights as awareness. And this has been great for me. Any opportunity I can get to speak and to do my work, anything, I've just been busy all month because I love it. I jump at the opportunity to perform and to showcase what I'm capable of doing. And so this is so important that we have more dialogues like this from, you guys are all over, Tennessee, Washington. Like I've been talking to Miss Ann since 6 p.m. and so much. So it's just great to see. And it has to happen more. So y'all continue, please, to do what you're doing because this has been great for me.
Yes, I was thinking about coming off mute, and then I was like, you know what? I'm not good at being brief. I'll try to be brief, and then I just kind of keep it going. I was like, I'm just gonna let whoever needs to go first. But for me, civil rights is community. Off the top of my head, just because you would think it's history, but it's not, because right now what we are going through and what we are advocating for is civil rights just as much as in 1963. But 1963 is a part of that civil rights community. What you all had been through, what you all had experienced, has given us the go ahead to do what we're doing now, because so many people feel that they don't have a voice or feel that they can't share or don't know how to share. I know that just growing up in America, being a Black child, being a Black girl, being a Black anything in America, it has its challenges. And I went to most predominantly white schools for a very large portion of my life, all of my life. And so I didn't have that representation in my school, but my mom and my grandmother and my great-grandmother and my aunts and my uncles, my cousins, and people that in my church community, just community, would come together and teach me things about my culture, teach me things about my history. I mean, honestly, when I go over to my grandma's house, she fixes me some collard greens and cornbread and she just sits and tells me stories. I'm just writing notes, and I have notes on my phone. I have notes everywhere of just recordings and things of her just telling me her life. And that's such a big part of what community is, because all of our different experiences and connections and life just comes together and helps us create what is civil rights and helps us create that fight and that awareness that Julius was talking about. They all just come together and create that community. So
for me, I feel like my definition of civil rights is constantly evolving, because the fight for civil rights is constantly evolving and constantly ongoing. I don't think we're anywhere near having complete equality and everyone having equal and civil rights. And I don't think we'll be near there until big change happens. For me, the thing I advocate for the most in my poetry is to give light to different voices, because I feel like even though we might have equality in a sense, a lot of people are still muted and not heard. And I feel like that's why events like this matter a lot to me, because not only am I able to hear like the ideas of people different from me, but I'm also able to see how civil rights has evolved over time and kind of just share these ideas. It gives me a better perspective of, you know, the work is still going, that while there has been great changes made, we still have a lot more to do. But events like this give me reassurance that not only are there people in my present helping me, but there are people who made a big change in civil rights in the past still here and still helping. So that's what civil rights means to me, and that's what this event means to me.
Thank y'all so much, students, for doing this and for spreading so much light tonight. I had a fantastic time. I'm sure everybody else had a fantastic time. I can't wait to watch this back and to share it with everybody who I know and say, look at these students, you know, they're so amazing. I don't know if the organizers, if Anne or Judy have anything they want to say, or even Matt, before we close. So I'll leave it to them.
Well, I cannot say enough about how wonderful it's been to have all of you with us this evening. It's really a foray into multi-generational conversation for us, and we want to keep it going. So thank you. And especially a group of us are looking at what's happening in schools and what could change about how civil rights is taught. And we're hoping to talk with some of you, and then that's actually our program for next month, is to engage this group in discussing how we could help out.
Yeah, and I'll just say again, thank you all so much for an amazing evening, and thank you so much to Kids in Birmingham 1963 for letting us join with y'all on this. What an amazing evening.
Agreed. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, Ashley. Any last words from you?
Thank you.
No, thank y'all. Have a great night. If you live in Texas, stay warm. And hope it's not too terrible out there. And I'll see you students at school.
Thank you all.
All so much.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley and students.
Thank you.
All right.
Ashley, it was amazing. Thank you.
Yay, I'm so glad. I had a great time. So thank y'all for letting us come.